I will hand this over to Richard Hathaway very shortly, who is the head of the Connecticut Coalition of Interreligious Understanding. So thank you for being here, and we will get going now.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
So my name is Rick Hathaway. I'm the. Can you hear me okay? Good morning. So how many people have heard of CCIU is the acronym we use? Maybe I know some of you were here 2 weeks ago. So it's the Connecticut Council for Interreligious Understanding. It's a long name. Thus we call it CCIU. But our focus is on really education about the faith diversity across the state of Connecticut. And there are 9 faith backgrounds that represent our board of directors. So all 9 faiths are represented. And we're very fortunate that your church has chosen to do a series where we're covering all 9 faiths. So this is the second of that series, covering Judaism, Hinduism, and Sikhism. Just a little bit about myself. How many of you have heard of Habitat for Humanity? Okay. My whole career was spent with Habitat for Humanity from Massachusetts, where I got involved in 1985. So I've been involved for a long time. Habitat celebrates 50 years, actually next year. And I lived most of my life in Asia, 25 years in Asia. So I've lived in countries where many of the faiths were different than my faith. And learned a lot about that, met many colleagues. And so I'm excited to be a part of an organization that is helping us to see how the diversity of our faiths really is a strength to be leveraged. But a lot of that comes from just understanding how people worship differently, what are their traditions that are different, but they all are our neighbors. And that's why we call this series the Love Your Neighbor, Know Your Neighbor series. CCIU focuses on education about the faith, dialogue, and then community impact. Community impact is a new pillar where we're bringing people of different faiths together to partner with organizations to demonstrate that we may look differently, worship differently, but we can serve the community in the same way, partnering with Habitat for Humanity. We did a youth training back in August where we brought people, youth of 5 different faiths together for leadership training, and then they developed community projects demonstrating how youth of different faiths can also come together to make a difference. That's a little bit about CCIU. We're very fortunate today to have with us Ari Schaefer, who is the, apologies Ari, I have not memorized your background yet. But Ari is a volunteer with CCIU. Ari is the founder of the Greater Hartford for Israel, a grassroots advocating for Israel and opposing anti-Semitism in the Hartford area and around Connecticut. Ari is the communications director at the Buckley Institute, and before moving to Connecticut, he worked for the Georgia Secretary of State in the U.S. Department of Commerce and the White House. Also is Radha Krishnan. Radha is a board member of CCIU. He's been involved for a long time. He's been a resident of Connecticut for more than 5 decades. He's been a long-standing board member of CCIU and is somebody I continue to learn from. Before his retirement, he was employed as a senior executive of the Hartford Financial Services Group. And he's a founding member of the Connecticut Valley Hindu Temple Society and has served on its board. He's currently serving on the board of the Connecticut Public Broadcasting. So thank you, Radha. Also with us is Sujit Singh. Now, I've got a little bit about Sujit on my phone here. He was born and raised in West Hartford, Connecticut. He was raised in a traditional Indian Sikh family. He grew up balancing Sikh religion, Indian culture, and American culture. He would eat American food at school and Indian food at home. Played basketball with friends after school and would go to the Sikh temple, which is called a Gurudwara, in Southington. And he currently works as an engineer for a local firm in Connecticut. So thank you all for being with us. And we always talk to our panelists about they are people that know a lot about their faiths. But this really isn't probably a dialogue to get into theology, or we might talk a little bit about history, but it's really to get to know what is it like to be a member of their faith and also a citizen of the state we all live in Connecticut. So feel free to ask whatever questions you may have at your table or these cards. We would ask you to begin thinking about the questions you want to ask. Please write them down and just put your hand up and we'll collect it and make sure that we get to your questions. So the question we're going to start with is...
Richard, can you just turn it up a little bit? Sure.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So the question we're going to start with is different faiths have different calendars that follow their religious holidays. Some use the solar calendar, some use the lunar calendar. So I was going to ask them, what calendar does a faith use and how does it relate to the particular holidays in the year? So, Ari, maybe I'll start with you.
Sure. Can you hear me? It was off. That's part of the problem, I think. As Rick mentioned, I'm Ari. I'm here representing Jewish faith, what limited segment of it that I've just been aware of. The Jewish calendar follows the lunar calendar. We throughout the years, like something like a 19-year cycle. Every 19 years, the English, the regular solar calendar, the American calendar, and the English calendar, and the lunar and our Jewish calendar sync up. So kind of fun little thing, once every 19 years, your Hebrew birthday, your Hebrew calendar birthday, and your English birthday is the same one, and it's kind of like it's not particularly exciting, but it is, grand scheme of minor exciting things in religion, and that one always gets us pretty happy. But we have, so like I said, we go on the lunar calendar, we have a leap year every year, and we actually just started the Jewish New Year. If you have kids in the West Hartford schools, then you might have noticed you had a couple extra days off this week and the week before for two major holidays, Rosh Hashanah, which is the New Year, translates the head of the year, and then Yom Kippur, which is our Day of Atonement. At the beginning of a new year is, unlike it is in the secular calendar, there's not a lot of alcohol, there's no partying. It's considered our major time of atonement, reflection, asking for forgiveness from God. And then, we kind of continue throughout the year. We have Hanukkah in a couple months. We have a holiday called Sukkot. We spend a couple days living out in booths, eating outside in booths in the back of our homes. Passover later in the year. And then we kind of cycle back to the beginning, usually in the fall. We have Rosh Hashanah again and Yom Kippur.
Thanks, Ari. What do you think?
So, with respect to Sikhism, we have a Nanak Shahi calendar, which is essentially a solar calendar. And we typically have a lot of our holidays, just like Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. We have Vaisakhi, which is our Sikh New Year, which happens around the April time frame. We have Gurpurab, which is the birthday of our founder, Guru Nanak, in November. So those are two of the major holidays we have as part of our solar calendar.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Shoot your chin.
In Hinduism, because of the fact that it is the oldest, one of the oldest religions of the world, before the Roman calendar, we always follow a lunar calendar. That means the full moon and the new moon, the 28 days of the monthly lunar cycle, establish a single month. and the 12 months of the year. But if you go to India, they will publish calendars in both ways. There will be a lunar calendar as well as the solar calendar. So some of the festivities like a Diwali and then Navaratri, 9 days of celebration of the goddesses, those things will be established both on such and such days of the lunar calendar as well as the calendar. Same day, but it will be established so that people can understand either way. So, for example, the April 14th or 13th will be the new year of the Tamil calendar or the Hindu calendar starts, as opposed to January 1 of the year in the solar calendar.
Right on. Thank you. Don't forget your questions. Please go ahead and Dr. Dow would like to get all your questions today. So I was going to ask our panelists here, of your faith, what is a common misconception that people might have about your faith that you'd like to kind of share and kind of especially clarify for all of us? What would be something that people may not understand or may not be getting correctly about your particular faith? So, Sujit, maybe I'll start with you.
Well, I think we have a turban on our heads, and oftentimes we're mistaken, I'll say, for other faiths or potentially being Middle Eastern or Arabic. And I think as I've kind of grown up here in Connecticut, one of the things I've learned is...
not going right, the light system.
You know what it is, Sean? I didn't have the button pushed.
There you go. I do that like that. I got called out in the middle of service today.
Is this better? Arabic, even Middle Eastern. And I think the most important thing I've learned is you shouldn't respond with, oh, I'm a Sikh, so-and-so is something else of another religion. It's really about understanding people come from different walks of life. People come from different angles. They have a different upbringing. It's important to just understand the person for who they are. And I think out of the misconception, that's a silver lining for me, right? Being able to see someone for who they truly are on the inside.
You want to talk a little bit more about the turban and some of its meaning?
Sure. I mentioned Vaisakhi in my previous comment. It was the creation of the Khalsa, which is a brotherhood and sisterhood. You don't have to be Sikh to be part of the Khalsa, but the idea behind the Khalsa was to have a group of people who are united on a idea of shared values being honest living, service to humanity, and actually sharing some of your proceeds with others. And so that came out. We started that in the 1400s, and in the 1600s they started adding symbolism to the religion. Unfortunately, in the 1600s there was a lot of oppression. There was a certain empire within India at the time that wanted everyone uniformed under one religion. At that time, kings only wore turbans, and you had people from all different castes and all different walks of life, really who weren't given the same opportunities. And they created an identity. And it was a way to say that if anybody in society ever sees you, even without knowing you, they can affiliate those values with that particular identity.
Rana, what about Hinduism? What would be a common misconception people might have?
The most common misconception, can you hear me? Is that Hindus pray to lot of gods and goddesses. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. One of the oldest religious faiths, the Rig Veda, it clearly stipulated. This was done, I would say, thousands of years back. Is Ekam Sat Vibraha Baguda Vadandi. It's a Sanskrit version. The meaning behind is that the truth is one. Wise men call it by different names. That means the God is only one, but different faiths call it different names. And the reason that a lot of Hindus go to temples and then pray to their own favorite entity, that is where the misconception comes that they are going to different gods, is because of the fact that they represent the personification of a single Brahman. That's the single God that Hinduism believes in. And all these things are the manifestations of the different entities of the same God. See, when you do meditation, it is difficult to meditate on an abstract situation. They have to have a form or a vigraha. Vigraha is holding tight to certain form. That's what the meaning behind vigraha means in Sanskrit, holding tight to one entity. So whatever favorite religious or even family entities they worship, even though they represent a single Brahman.
That's right on. Thank you. And also, Ari, go ahead. For you, what would be a misconception of Judaism that you'd like to share? Help us to understand more about.
Sure. And it's always a challenge with this question because I don't want to then give you guys a misconception that you had never heard of before. And Judaism's been around a lot, and there are a lot of misconceptions out there about my faith. I'm sure there are about other faiths. But it's probably the most common one I've heard in culture is kosher, which is our set of dietary laws, what we do and don't eat. And there's kind of a conception or a sense out there that what it means is that the food has been blessed by a rabbi. I heard that when I was in college. I've heard that on TV, various movies, things reference it that way. But what kosher is, as I mentioned, is just a very intricate and extensive set of rules about which foods we can eat, which foods we can't eat, how they need to be prepared, what the kind of things you can and can't do with your food, when and how you can cook them. A lot of things we do eat. You guys eat Coca-Cola is kosher. A lot of normal products are kosher, and there's been no rabbi blessing them. So that's something I hear a lot.
One of the things that in places where I've lived, often we drive by other places of worship, and that sometimes is kind of a mystery, like how do people worship differently? I've had the pleasure of visiting the Hindu temple in Middletown, where I think Radha worships, and the Durwada in Southington, where Sujit worships. And one of the things we do at CCIU is we offer those opportunities to set up tours to see where people worship, see some of the insides of the buildings, and realize that they have the same fellowship we're having here. They have, I know in the Durwada in Southington, they serve food every Sunday, and we were there and had a nice meal with their congregation. So thank you for that. Now here's a question from the group, and please continue to write your questions. This one, and I'll ask Radha this question to start us off. What ways do you celebrate or practice your religion in your daily life? Radha, you gotta keep. Okay. I learned this the hard way. Keep it pointed to you.
Growing up, you have a family. Every Hindu family typically have a small shrine at their home. Even if it is a small place, they will have an area where they have something that they pray to. That happens in every family. And growing up at home, even at a very young age, my mother and father, when they do the prayers in the morning, they will not have anything, even have a cup of coffee before they do the prayer in the morning. And that comes as a part of the growing up type of situation. So most of the time when they get up, they either do a little bit of meditation before they wake up from the bed and take their early morning ritual of a bath and then come back and do their prayer before they walk into the kitchen to do the cooking for them. And I used to go to an engineering college very early in the morning. That means I have to bike about 2.5 miles to go to my engineering college. That means that starts at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. So I have commuting to do. So my mother used to wake up at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock very early in the morning. And she takes care of everything and then even prepare my breakfast in the morning before I go to my college. And so this is a ritual. And then on special days like some Saturdays or some festivities, there will be a feast, and then there will be a family get-together prayers. And so you learn certain Sanskrit versions or even the mother tongue versions of the songs that they sing in front of the altar that they have at home, even maybe a very simple altar. So a tradition is that every family will at least once a day think about the Almighty, because they truly believe, or we believe, that He is the force behind all of us. So He is the one who is really operating through us to do our chores and duties in life. So that's the learning that we do in Hinduism early on. That's a family tradition. And family get-together and family prayers on special days is very important growing up.
Thanks, Rana. Thank you. Ari, do you want to share your observations or the things that you do in your daily life to practice your faith?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Orthodox Jewish, which is one of the several major denominations of Judaism. And for us, Jewish practice is part of almost everything we do every day. We said everything we eat is under the auspices of kosher dietary laws. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's what you think about in a snack, it has to be kosher. We also pray. We have services 3 times a day, first thing in the morning. Also, there are many who don't eat or drink before they do services in the morning. So I pray in the morning, maybe have a little coffee, maybe have some water, but not much more than that. And then we have services in the afternoon. Every week we have the Sabbath, Friday night and Saturday night. We don't do any work. We don't use electricity. We don't cook. We don't use any electronics. It's actually a beautiful moment to come together with our family, not distracted by our phones. But it also means once a week we've got to prepare from like about Wednesday on to make sure we have food and are set up for the Sabbath. So our day-to-day lives are heavily, I wouldn't say dominated, regulated, or involved in the day-to-day practice of my faith.
And I understand because of that, many people will live close to the synagogue. Is that right?
Yes, because part of that being because of the Sabbath, you can't drive cars either. You're also limited on how far you can walk, even if you were to walk. So you'll often find if there's an Orthodox synagogue, there's a very large Jewish community in the area. So in West Hartford, there are 2 synagogues, 3 Orthodox synagogues, 2 in the same place, and then one that's near King Philip, and then there's another one closer to downtown Beth David. It's their large Orthodox communities concentrated in the area. Again, they have to walk on the Sabbath, but it's once a week.
What about yourself? What are ways that you would practice your faith daily?
Okay, so for me, I usually do prayers in the morning and evening. One of the interesting things is in Sikhism, you don't have to necessarily be in a certain place to worship or pray. So I'll be honest, I'm not a morning person at all, and so I'm usually praying on the way to work. And I have to be honest, there's rush hour traffic, people are stressed or pressured. It's kind of nice to not think about it and do something else. And for me, it's actually been a blessing in disguise.
It's a good thing to pray about traffic on your way to work. Thank you. That's great. Well, this is a great question. And keep thinking of the things you'd like to know more about, to gain more knowledge about the faith today. This one is about service, and this person says, I watched a program on Sikhism and learned how much charity work they do for the community, and would like each of the panelists to speak about what does your religion or your faith have to say about service, and what are ways that your place of worship would practice service to the community. So,
Do you want to? Sure, yeah. I mean, from a theological perspective, charity is a big part of the Jewish faith. I mentioned before the holiday before, which is our big day of atonement. It's the end of our holiday, or kind of 10 days of repentance. We get forgiveness for God, and God judges us for what we've done, judges our world for all their acts for this year, and kind of sets our path for the next year. And a big part of that is charity giving. There are 3 principles on which God forgives us. One is our personal repentance, one is prayer, and the third one is charity. And that's giving charity and acts of charity, and how we treat other people and work towards not just ourselves and our family, but the world around us. So it is a central part of the Jewish faith.
So with Sikhism, we also have three major tenets, which are to earn an honest living. That's very, very important. To perform acts of service in community. I'm forgetting the third one here. So there's one more. It's not coming to my mind right now. But in terms of the service aspect, yeah, Sikhs do a lot of service within the community. When Hurricane Katrina happened, they actually loaded up lots of supplies and drove to New Orleans. They don't have a large community there. They went to help. I can tell you in Syria, when they had the refugee crisis, there was a Sikh gentleman who traveled to Syria. We do langar in our gurdwaras, which is really like a community meal. He would do that every single day. And he must have been in all kinds of danger because a lot of the people didn't know what a Sikh was. He could be mistaken for something else. He risked his life to try and feed people. So it's a core aspect of our religion. I can tell you I've volunteered in churches at soup kitchens. It doesn't matter what your faith is, everybody needs to eat. And so they look at different aspects. I know our community or our Sikh Gurdwara or temple does the Bread for Life in Southington. So every year around Thanksgiving they go down and participate in that community and make sure that people get fed. And if anybody ever wants, the Sikh temple's open. We give meals every Sunday to everybody, same meals. They're freshly prepared. If you guys are ever interested and want to learn more, I'd be happy to arrange that. Thank you.
In Hinduism, I just want to go and then quote something from the Vedas. The three tenets in the Vedas that say, Matru Deva Bhava, Pitru Deva Bhava, Atiti Deva Bhava. The meaning behind is Matru, mother is like a god. Pitru, father is like a god. Atiti is a guest, a fellow human being. Atiti Deva, they are also God. So that's the tenet in the Vedas, to say those three things. And then in most of the temples, if you go and visit them, after the puja is done, they give you prasad, whatever that is offered to the temple god or goddess, and that will be shared to the people who are visiting the temple, so that people who, if they are hungry, they go to the nearest temple, they will be given that, the feed the hungry type of situation. So these were the tenets of that. The other thing that is very important in Hinduism, when you go to India, they will say Namaste. They put the hands together, say Namaste. The meaning behind that is that the God residing in me is the same God or the Brahman residing in you. So I bow you, the God reside in you. And so I'm worshipping you type of situation. So if I go hungry, or if you go hungry, it is as good as that we are all hungry and we need to feed together. So to the extent that people can have the wealth to share, they try to. And that doesn't mean that everybody in the country are charitable, but they try to observe, because they say what you do if you feed the others, they say your family in generations will not go hungry. That is what they say. So it's considered as what you call as that something you do for the benefit for the humanity, which will come back as a karma for you today on this life as well as for future births, because Hinduism believes in reincarnation.
I was living in Thailand in 2004 when the Indian Ocean tsunami hit multiple countries. And it was so amazing to me. People of all faiths were affected by that tsunami. But people of all faiths also lent a hand. They didn't ask what faith you were from. And so I think it's all faiths. I think that we share that, have a desire that we all can care about other people. And by the way, we might be of different faiths too. Yeah. Great, well keep the questions coming. This one is for all of you. If a neighbor came to you and knew nothing about your religion, What one thing would you say that is a characteristic of yours that you would want to share with them? Roger, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. I think one thing I found out in life, if the neighbor is coming from a different religion, first I want to understand what the religion that they are belonging to. I try to understand what the tenets of it. If whatever I know something about it, if I don't know, I will ask them some questions about it. And the thing that I found out in life is the more you know about the other religions, that helps you to understand the religious beliefs that you have. Not that for comparison purposes, but the in-depth understanding of what the humanity is all about. And that is what makes it. And I also tell them along the way that just like the way I told you before, Ekam Sat Vibraha Bahuda Vadandi, the whatever religious belief they have, imagine that everybody is trying to achieve heaven or Brahman or Vaikunta, whatever religious thing that you believe in. That is at the pinnacle of the mountain. And the pinnacle of the mountain has infinite ways to get to the top of the mountain. And who has to say which route is the best route to get to that top of the mountain? Because nobody has been there yet. So how can you claim that this is the only way to get to the top of the mountain? So the key here is that let them pursue their own path. Let us all dance together. Have a tent that encompasses everybody within the tent. As long as you don't step on somebody's toes, let's all dance and enjoy the music and get to the top of the mountain.
So in Sikhism, they believe in one universal God. It doesn't matter what faith or what walk of life you come from. In Sikhism, they believe there are multiple paths to merge with God. And they recognize that. And in our holy scripture, which we actually bow to when we go to a place of worship, Guru Nanak had actually not only taken 6 scriptures, he had taken scriptures from other religions, Hinduism, Islam, all the religions that were around him, and he found universal messages throughout all of them, and he took them word for word and put them in addition to the 6 scriptures into that holy scripture called the Guru Granth Sahib. So every time you bow, it's a reminder that, people come from different walks of life. You respect, you recognize, and acknowledge that they're also trying for the same goal in life that you are.
So I'm going to go a little bit different direction. If a neighbor were to come over and ask, kind of sum up Judaism, kind of one idea, there actually are, within the Jewish, lexicon, numerous debates about this exact point, right, where someone comes up and says, explain to me the whole Torah, which is our Hebrew word for the Old Testament, the whole Torah in one sentence. And in a characteristic Jewish way, there's a bunch of rabbis who argue about it, and there are like 3 different versions of that argument about it, where different rabbis say different things according to different people. And I would probably tell that story, because in many ways that's a good description of the Jewish faith. We've been around for thousands of years, and we've been arguing about our faith for thousands of years. And it's where a religion and faith that's rich in debate, discussion, writing, education, erudition. There are the line people say is there are 70 faces to the Torah. There are 70 faces to the Jewish Bible, and that's because there are a lot of different interpretations to what goes on. And to understand Judaism is to understand that there's no single interpretation, but we're all working trying to understand God's word as it was communicated to us, and trying to do God's will as we believe it's supposed to be done.
So this question is actually for Sujay. It's about language, and but I think it could apply to all of them. So really, a question for all of you is: at your place of worship, what language are the prayers said in your place of worship? So, do you want to start off?
Yeah, so it's in a language called Punjabi. It's very similar to Hindi. I give the analogy that it's like Spanish and Portuguese in terms of how similar they are. But I will tell you, a lot of us are born in the United States, and a lot of us need translation. So what they'll do is they have a big projector in the front and on the two sides, and they'll have it written in Punjabi, and they'll have the translation in English and the pronunciations and enunciations in English below it, so that other people can walk in and truly understand what we're discussing and praying at the same time.
So there's the history, but also the understanding for all. Ari, what about in implicit worship? What languages would you pray?
Sure. In the Jewish faith, our traditional language of prayer is Hebrew. We are also born in America. We're in America now, and most people do speak English. So we do, in various synagogues, different sects will translate more or less of the prayers from Hebrew into English, but the canonical text, the canonical prayers are all in Hebrew.
In India, I think whether you are aware or not, every state has its own language. There are close to 18 to 22 main language and close to 200 dialects. So every region has got its own language, and most of the discussions are happening in their local language. So many books have been, even though the original scripts were written in Sanskrit, there were so many scholars along the way. Like Hindu religion is one thing that I just want to mention, for I'm sure most of the people are aware of it. There is no single founder for the religion. There is no one single holy book for that religion. There is no one single temple for the religion to command that this is what is like a Vatican type of situation. So there were established centers, different parts of the country, and they follow their own local language, translated versions of the original Sanskrit language. And then some Hindi language, very prevalent, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Marathi, Hindi. So those are the different languages. And many people, as in Sikhism, believe it or not, that in India, India is the origin for Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, as well as Jainism. So there were 4 religions origin, and then I happen to be in the southern part of the country where we call them as a Tamil Nadu, where within 25-mile circle of my hometown, there are so many mosques, so many temples, a Gurudwara, and also a Buddhist temples and Jainist temples are there. And there is a significant Islamic population there. So I grew up in a place in my elementary school and the high school. My fellow students were, some of them are Buddhists, some of them are Sikhs, some of them were Islamic people, Hindus, and Hindus of different categories of, Vishnu and also Shaivites type of situation. So I happen to be learning along the way a richest religious, interreligious culture. So that's how in India, in any place you walk in, you will be exposed to that type of situation.
Radha, how many languages do you speak?
My mother tongue is Tamil. I learned German along the Kannada. I can understand very well, and not very proficient in speaking, but I can translate few languages without any problem. If somebody speaks in English or Tamil, I can translate a couple of other languages.
It was amazing people in India who speak so many languages because of you.
That's true, because I used to work for, I'm very fortunate that I used to work for a multi-national corporation in India, in Mumbai, before coming to this country. So I had an opportunity to travel almost many states. I had been to Gurudwara, I had been to Islamic mosques, and I had been to in Kerala, a temple from your faith, and 400-old temple in Kochi.
I was going to ask, I've been there also.
Yeah, oh, you've been there, yeah, okay, good. So I was very fortunate. So early part of my life, I have been inculcated with the interreligious understanding, to have fortunate to understand different parts of the religion, including Christianity, because I used to live next door to a Christian Catholic church, and not very far from my home is a Protestant church also.
So great questions. Keep the questions coming. This is a question about the role of women play in your faith. Whether it's worship or just in general as well. So
different denominations will vary, will differ significantly. Kind of, I guess, as you move across the spectrum, the Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform. Orthodox being the most traditional, Conservative being somewhere in the middle, Reform being the most, I guess, progressive or non-traditional in that sense. In an Orthodox synagogue, there are separate roles for men and women. The rules are kind of structured, like the understanding of law is structured around traditional understanding of women's role in the household versus men's role in the household. There are more obligations on a man on an average day than there are on a woman. We're obligated to go to services 3 times a day, to do prescribed services and show up at the synagogue. Women are fulfill their obligation to prayer just by praying in their own time, doing that sense. So that kind of filters down to other parts of how the community organizes itself, how the faith community organizes itself. Different synagogues will approach it in different ways. There are synagogues that have women in leadership roles just as much as any other synagogue might. There are denominations, there are sects that don't make those distinctions and think they're outmoded. And few women is ignore or just don't. I guess they would say probably don't take into account distinctions in traditional liturgy between men and women. So there is a broad spectrum.
So it's really about equality. Men and women have the same exact opportunities. I can tell you that we love our women, we support them, we encourage them. They are doing all kinds of beautiful things in society. I have cousins who are doctors, teachers, whatever they want to do, they're allowed to do it. And we encourage them and support them. They're an important aspect of our society. We value them as equals, as partners, and it's something very important to our community.
In Hinduism, they give significant importance to women. I just want to give a couple of examples. Only last week, we had a celebration of Navaratri. Nava means 9, Ratri means nights. 9 night celebration devoted to 3 goddesses that we pray in temples. So the goddess of Parvati, that is Shiva's wife, goddess of Lakshmi, that is wife of Vishnu, and goddess of Durga. So we have 3 different versions of this one, 3 nights to celebrate the women goddesses in the country. 9 days of celebration to worship them. So throughout India, the celebration is taking place. That's number 1. Number 2, there is a thing called Ardha Nariswara. Ardha in Sanskrit means half. Nari means women. So Shiva has been portrayed as 50% half man, half woman, because we all have the traits of male version and the female version. Every one of us have that combination of the versions of that one. To celebrate the combination, in certain temples in India, we have Ardhanariswara. The vigraha or the statue will be portrayed half man, half woman. And that is being worshipped because woman is the equal partner of man. So that is how the importance to women. That's number 2. Number 3 is in the tenets of the Hinduism, we have Mata, Pida, Guru, Devam. Mata is mother, Pida is father, Guru is the person, the teacher. So all these 3 are God. Portrayal, all 3 were elevated to the God stature in one's life. So Mata is the first. mother. She is the person who creates the entire generation from this point on. Male cannot do that. So she is the number one worshipper in the whole world.
Thank you for that. This question is for Ari. It's about differences between Orthodox and unorthodox, and do they worship in the same place? And very briefly, anything you want to share about kind of those differences?
Sure. I'm not an expert in, like I said, I'm Orthodox, which is the most traditional of three major denominations. Within each of the three major denominations, there are sub-denominations. So I'm not an expert in the major denominations or every sub-denomination, definitely, so I can't speak expertly in that sense. We do pray in the same, they're called synagogues. We'll use different words to see like different denominations. Some, I think, Reform usually uses temple. Conservative Judaism uses synagogue more readily, I think, and then Orthodox Judaism will usually use the Hebrew word, or they'll use the Yiddish word, which is shul, which is where you might hear Yiddish being kind of like a agglomeration of German and Hebrew that was used in like Poland and Eastern Europe when that was the center of Jewish life. The prayers change a little bit. There are some like the canonical central prayers that you'll find in each of the services in major denominations. Some denominations will bring in more modern, recent constructed prayers. Orthodox services tend not to. Our liturgy, we have prayers for the state, prayers for our leaders, but most of the prayers trace back hundreds of years. You can find them written out in the Talmud, which is one of our major collection of those debates I talked about. They wrote it down. This is in the 500s and 600s. But there are like a central core that you'll see across all three, maybe with minor variations. But depending on the temple, the synagogue, they could change a lot.
So this next question is for all the panelists, and this is probably a lot you could say about this, so it's going to be a challenge to maybe keep this brief. But it's a question about death and dying and afterlife, and in your faith. Maybe I'll start with Radha. In your faith, what is the belief about dying and those steps?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of scriptures talk about afterlife. See, most quoted books is Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita says, Vasamsi jivnani yadha vigaya navani krihnati naroparani tada sarirani vihaya jinani anyani samyadi navani dehe. This is Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, talks about life and death. What it says here is, just like the way people cast away the old clothes and then wear new clothes, you only lose your body at the time of your death. The soul is eternal, impermeable. You cannot destroy it. The water cannot destroy it, fire cannot destroy it, nothing will destroy the soul. The soul survives, soul is eternal. It's like a spark of the Brahman. Just like the way the sun has so many sparks that has the characteristics of the spark in the entire sun. The soul has the characteristics of the conscious, the Brahman, the God himself. So don't be sorry if somebody dies. Yes, the physical body dies, not the soul never dies. So the entire chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita talks about this type of thing. So, and also they also believe in karma, that what you sow is what you reap. What you do here is basically the Christian principle of that, you cannot do something wrong and then expect that the good benefit is going to come through. But what the Hinduism takes it to one step ahead. You may not be able to, life is like a balance sheet. all the good deeds are on the one side, like an asset, liabilities on the other side, and what you carry left over, the equity, that you carry it to the next birth. Because you will not, if you haven't completed your balance sheet, until you complete your balance sheet, you are not going to the abode of heaven or the abode of the Brahman type of thing. So that's basically what the Hinduism believes in. So be good, love thy neighbor, and do your duty. Don't expect the benefits of that, what you are going to get. Because your benefits will eventually be given to you if you deserve it. Because sow the right things so you can reap the right things in life.
So with Sikhism, we see death as a transition, right? Like Rabba said, Hinduism, Sikhs believe in an eternal soul. The physical body is temporary, while the soul is external. Death is a part of the cycle of birth, death, and Sikhs don't believe in heaven and hell. They believe in either the soul merging with God or reincarnation. And again, it's based on the same concept. We call it dharma, it's karma. It's what goes around comes around in a lot of different aspects of society. So, same idea. So your actions are weighed, and based on those actions, you're either reincarnated or merged. And again, it can be people of different walks and faiths going through the same thing. It doesn't mean it's just six. In other words, that the merging of God can come through other religions and other channels as well. The only other thing I really wanted to touch upon was in terms of how the Sikh community responds and reacts to death. Obviously, it's a very sad time for everyone involved, but the hard part and the thing that I think is often a challenge for any human being is you let go of your ego at that moment, right? You accept what's happened, you understand it's God's will, and you try to move on.
So, like I said before, within Judaism, everything is a debate. So there are a lot of different perspectives on this. I guess there's a couple main aspects of how Judaism approaches the world. What happens after you die? The world to come. In Hebrew, Olam Haba. Literally just translate to Olam, the world to come. Judaism generally believes that not only that Jews can merit a portion in the Olam Haba. It's kind of seen as like another world, so to speak. You can have like your own lot, your own space. So Jews can merit that by following Jewish law, but non-Jews also are pretty much guaranteed a spot in the world to come according to Jewish law. Unless you're really do absolutely terrible things, but short of like really hitting the bottom of the barrel there, Jews and non-Jews alike have a space in Jewish liturgy in the world to come. In terms of how we deal with dying and death, there are actually kind of two different approaches to that. Within modern Judaism, there are, among the many divisions, there are two major, kind of ethnic groups. There's Ashkenaz and Sephardim. Ashkenaz is people from, Ashkenaz means Germany in Hebrew, but it means really like Central Europe, Eastern Europe, and then people from the Middle East, Morocco, Israel, Syria, kind of that whole stretch. And the Middle Eastern kind of approach is very positive on death. They're obviously not happy that people died, but you take a positive approach on how great their life was. And so when they kind of enter the mourning period, they will have drinks to kind of honor the person who died, and they'll be happy, and they'll wish each other like good tidings, right? The Ashkenaz version, which some people, which is I guess the Central European, Eastern European version, is a much more somber approach, where same period of mourning, but it's taken very seriously, very sadly. We give each other condolences in a much more somber, I guess, traditional Western sense.
Great, thank you. Thanks for all these questions. I did want to ask you, there is a form on your tables where if you'd like to learn, keep in touch with CCIU. If you want to put your name and contact details, we'd love to stay in touch with you. So a little bit of a commercial so we can keep you posted. So this next question for all of you is about what your faith would say about your relationships with other faiths. So a little bit about interfaith understanding. And there are a couple of questions I'm trying to align here. This one in particular talked about a question about the divisions in interfaith understanding. But I think the it kind of aligns with what do your faiths say about how you relate to other faiths. Ron, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, as I told you that Hinduism is one religion, if you read about it, that they do not try to convert the other people to Hindu faith. They believe that every path is the right path to get to the Almighty. That's the first belief. Second belief is that when they finish praying, they will say, Vasudeva Kudumbakam. Vasudeva Kudumbakam is the entire universe, not the entire people on earth. The entire universe is one big family. Kudumbam means family. Vasudeva Kudumbakam means the entire universe is one family. And then the third thing that they talk about at the end of the prayer is Lokas Samastas Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka means the entire universe people, wherever they are. Samastas, recite people and the universe life they are living in that one. Doesn't have to be people, it could be inanimate objects also. Lokas Samastas Sukhino Bhavantu, because they also knew that even plants have pain and suffering. So Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu means let them be happy and comfortable. That is what that Sanskrit means. So these are the three tenets at the end of the prayer. They say Vasudeva Kudumbakam, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. So that tells you how they want to treat the other religious people.
Great knowledge there. Yeah. Okay.
So I think we touched upon this a little bit earlier in that in our Holy Scripture called the Guru Granth Sahib, they actually have the actual scriptures of other religions baked into it. So whoever Guru Nanak and the Sikhs came in contact with around the Indian and Middle Eastern regions, they actually have the word-for-word scriptures, including Hinduism, among other religions. We believe in interfaith understanding, interfaith respect. I can tell you that through community service, there were a couple of natural disasters in the Kashmir region, and the Sikh community not only made places of worship for their gurdwaras, they made them for Hindu mandirs, Muslim mosques, and gave people of different faiths the ability to pray in the way they wanted. It's a very important aspect of our religion. In the, I want to say, late 1800s, the Sikhs had an empire in India, and there were no forced conversions. They would not allow it. It's something that's written in our scriptures. There is no belief in that. There are no missionaries. They're just, we believe that if somebody is interested, they're more than welcome to comment, but nobody should be forced to make a choice. You should be able to make your own individual choice and individual decision.
I just want to add one more thing on this. Sikhism thing. One of my visits to Gurudwara in central India, they always worship on a holy book that is wrapped in a beautiful salwa or shawl type of situation. And in that one, scriptures from various faiths are all inscribed there. And I was told by one of the leaders in that Gurudwara that in, I think, the 11th chapter or someplace, where they have two versions of the Hindu scriptures from Jayadevar Ashtapadi is presented. And they chanted that two versions of that one. So I was really, very surprised to see that Hindu religious Sanskrit version was incorporated in the Sikh holy book. So I just want to share that information with you.
Thank you, Radha.
I guess split it kind of two different ways. There's kind of the religious approach to Judaism and the communal approach to Judaism. Religiously, there isn't really any kind of sense of need to do inter-religious outreach. Judaism isn't a proselytizing religion. In fact, we're as far from proselytizing as possible. We discourage converts. One of the stories in not that we don't want converts, but we consider it a very serious undertaking. So we don't want people to, join the Jewish faith and both religious, and cultural, and historical baggage without understanding the undertaking that is. There's one of the books, the Torah, the story of Ruth, who does end up converting to Judaism, and her grandkids, her kids, she gets birth to King David, who's heard of, builds the temple, and is a really important icon. So converts do have a major role in the Jewish faith, but she's discouraged 3 times from becoming Jewish, from converting, and that's kind of our model. That we tend to tell people, okay, you want to do this, this is what it undertakes, so this is what it really means. So ask again, this is what it really means. So we don't have a lot of, from a religious perspective, interfaith outreach in that sense. As a community, definitely in the past few hundred years, interreligious or interfaith outreach has become a bigger part of what we do as a community across the sects. Definitely understanding that we're part of the community, part of the world, part of the country, and our place in the world is both. It's critical to understand other communities and be connected to them and be part of the same world that they're in.
I'm actually headed to India in a couple of weeks, and I recently re-looked at the movie Gandhi. I'm sure many of you have seen it. Really, it was a reminder of how he lived and breathed interfaith understanding. Like the point of the movie where he says, "I am Jewish, I am Muslim, I am Hindu." He obviously grew up a Hindu, but it's a great example of that we all live in this. We all are neighbors. We can learn from each other and respect each other as well. This next one is for all of you, and I'll start with you, Ari. Have you ever questioned your faith, or had somebody else question you about why do you believe in that?
That's an easy question in front of a room full of people, but no, of course, I'm a human being. Questions, I have challenges, things happen, you hear about tragedies on a global scale, tragedies on a personal scale, and you kind of wonder, where is my place, where's my relationship with God? Especially I'd say when after my year in high school, I took a gap year in Israel. I went to study in a religious seminary, which is common among the Orthodox sect. After high school, you take a year, maybe a couple of years to study, and a lot of that experience is kind of going through that cycle over and over again. Learning something new. What do I believe? Okay, I've settled on this question. What about the next question? I would say that's a part of the religious faith, or I'd say it's part of the religious experience. So I think it's not unique to me. It's not unique to Judaism. But yeah, you just kind of take the questions as they come, and I realize that I like the faith. I like the world. I like that the world, the faith my faith creates, and I like the philosophy that it and structure that it gives to my life. So even as the questions come and they challenge me time and time again, I know I'm at home in the things I believe, in the Jewish faith that has colored my life to this day.
Okay. So I think there was 2 aspects to that question, right? I think one is with respect to yourself, the other is with respect to others asking you. I'll start with respect to others asking you first. Of course, I think with my identity, I get questioned a lot about why I keep it. I live here in the U.S. I'm well settled. Why bother keeping it? Why bother keeping a faith? And to me, I always feel like you need a purpose in life, right? Whatever that purpose is. And I think faith, no matter what your faith is, Hinduism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, whatever it is, it's one way to get that purpose in life, right? I think all religions in general teach about being selfless, having the ability to respect others, love others, treat others the same way you want to be treated. And it gives you a goal you have in life. And to me, I think everybody needs a purpose in life to truly be happy. In terms of it from my own perspective, I think there are times where you will run into a conflict and you will question yourself and what you believe in. I think that's a pretty natural form of life. And those are the moments you get tested, right? Those are the moments you get challenged, and you either validate your decision or don't. And I know for myself, just going through things with September 11th and things like that, in general, it did make me question, but I think the thing I think I learned the most is the one thing I'd like to do and be remembered for is how I treated others, right? And I think no matter what walk of life you come from, everybody has a similar shared belief. So for me, it's almost like a silver lining, and it's those moments you get tested that you truly remember.
Yeah, I have been asked many times, you are an engineer, you are learning about quantum mechanics and science and all kinds of scientific principles, and how come you can meditate every day and then you can think about religion and things like that. That question has been asked many times to me at very many meetings that I have come across. All those times I have only a few responses to them, and I have responded this way. I believe in a force beyond mine, and I respect that force. That's number one. Second thing, I quote this, in 1893, Swami Vivekananda came to Chicago to give a lecture on world religions, and he talked about Hindu religion at that time, and he quoted this thing at that time, which I read about it, and I always remember this. And this is what I tell them. Religion, I follow religion because religion is the manifestation of divinity already in man. So I repeat again, religion is the manifestation of the divinity already in man. So we all have the divinity there. To evoke and refine that divinity in us, we have to fall back on religion, whichever religion is.
Okay, there were many questions about anything unique about the food that you eat or how it's prepared. I know we touched on that a little bit, but maybe we could do that again. So start with you, Radha. Anything about the diet or the food within Hinduism that you'd like to share?
Yeah. I've been living in this country for 56 years, and I got married in 1973. So my wife and I live in the state of Connecticut. I mean, we used to live in Georgia and then moved to Connecticut all these years. I have a boy and a girl born in this country, and then I have 5 grandchildren. My wife is a strict vegetarian. That means she doesn't eat any, even egg or meat. And in the beginning, when I was a student, I used to eat egg. And since due to my travel all over the world as a head of the international operation, I used to go to almost all the countries in the world, including China and Malaysia, Singapore. I have traveled all over the world a few times. And because of that, I have tried some meat here and there. But after I retired, or after I got married to my wife, I have become a strict vegetarian. And that is the only diet that I have here. I sometimes eat eggs because I eat cakes and things like that. But one thing that we both are very regular about, I've been meditating for the last 45 years in the morning, continuously. I've taken, and that helped me a lot to keep myself in the center. Second, I also, with my wife, every day pray, at least for 1 hour. And we chant the scriptures every day. And we listen to a lot of philosophical
and religious lectures anywhere from the world that is being broadcast. And whenever we interact with our grandchildren, we tell them the stories behind it. We give them some morals behind those stories so that they will have a bearing in their life type of situation. Whether they pursue it or not, that is up to them. But at least we try to inculcate the culture that we have been raised to, so that we truly believe, my wife and I truly believe that it will be helpful to them to face the trials and tribulations in their life growing up.
So with Sikhism, a couple of things. If you're a baptized Sikh, which is a path you can choose if you'd like at any point within the religion, it can happen at any age. It's not a birthright. It can happen when and if you choose to do it. They're vegetarian, similarly to Hinduism. No eggs, no fish. They are strict vegetarians. For those that aren't baptized, like myself, we can eat meat. But within meat, they actually forbid halal, which is a type of way that certain types of meats are prepared. It has to do with the way that the animal's throat is cut and the blood is drained. In Sikhism, they believe if you're going to do it, just kill it in one strike. Don't sit there and let it take longer to die. So that's an important aspect. I know when you go to a place of worship, we only do vegetarian food. It is believed in Sikhism in general that, when you're in a place of worship, by eating vegetarian food and not eating something living, you have a better chance for spirituality and connecting with God. So anytime you go to a Sikh place of worship, it's always vegetarian food. And I can tell you my brother is baptized, I am not. We live together and I'm learning how to cook vegetarian food. I finally bought an Instapot and I'm hoping for the best.
I think at your place of worship is great food.
And I can definitely not cook like that, right?
So in Judaism, like I said before, we have rules of kosher, which are very exhaustive. There are books and books written about them. One of the most commonly known details about it is we don't eat pork. We don't eat, nothing that comes from a pig, and we don't eat shellfish. And the laws kind of get more it's minutiae there because you got to make sure that nothing you're eating has any traces of that. So it gets very complicated. But in terms of the kind of food we do eat, aside from the kind of things that we're not allowed to eat, food is a very important part of Jewish culture. We especially, unlike the Suchi and Rada, meat is a very big part of the Jewish culture. Saturday morning services, which are kind of like the cornerstone of the Jewish faith in terms of showing up to synagogue, usually followed by food, often includes something called cholent, which is a stew, a fairly thick stew, which includes meat, potatoes, barley. If you look at the history of it, it's actually just kind of the leftovers that people had in Eastern Europe. They just throw it into a pot and cook it for the day, and they would eat on Sabbath morning. We have on Passover, eating a sacrifice, a lamb sacrifice is an important part of that. For those who are Christian, you might know the word Paschal, referring to a lamb. It's the same idea, Passover, Paschal being related to Passover. And eating meat on that holiday is also very important too. So we have different cultural traditions, like I said, Ashkenaz and Sephardi, which I mentioned, Middle Eastern and Central European. But aside from the things we can't eat, we really do like to eat. So.
After that question, we're all very hungry. So this is the last question for today. It's about the word joy. And so in your faith, what does your faith have to say about joy, and how do you celebrate joy, whether it's a holiday or in some other aspect of your faith? Maybe I'll start with you, Ari.
Sure. It actually dovetails well with the last question because there's kind of a saying or a principle, somewhere between the two in the Jewish faith that in Simcha el basar v'yayin. Simcha means joy. It's the most universal word for joy. It means there's no real joy without meat and wine. So when we celebrate, I think we're a little more skeptical of alcohol, these days than we used to be. But still, you go to a Jewish celebration, there's often a large amount of alcohol, wine, hard liquor, and there's often the same meat cooked in a million different ways for no reason. I can't quite understand why we do that, but so I mean that's one part of it in terms of celebrations. There's singing, there's dancing. We have kind of music that is traditional music. We come together based around prayers, more modern things, and a lot of it's just sitting down together for meals. Like every Sabbath is a celebration. Every Friday night to Saturday, we turn off our phones. We don't drive. We have friends, family over for meals. We have a holiday coming up this week and next called Sukkot, which I mentioned. We sit outside. We have family, friends over, people who are in walking distance because you can't travel. Every celebration is a chance for you to get together with your friends. It's a chance to bring other people into the celebration.
So I think let's start with joy. We believe in something called Pt.2, which is eternal optimism. It's very similar to the idea of the law of attraction, and that where you try to maintain a positive mindset no matter what. And I think that's something that can be challenging at times for sure, but it's a really nice concept. It's something I truly believe in. It's something I try, every day for a few minutes just to say what I'm grateful for, even when you're having a bad day. And I think those are it's funny, right? When I start, I don't really want to when you're having a bad day, but when you finish, you feel so much better. And then in terms of celebration, Sikhism is part of a state in India called Punjab. So they have the Punjabi culture, and they have a lot of music, a lot of celebrations surrounding that. So you'll often find Sikhs who go to the place of worship during the day for a holiday like Vaisakhi, and then they'll have a celebration at night really around the Punjabi culture. They have a vast music selection, and you're seeing a lot of American singers collaborate with them. Ed Sheeran, One Republic. So it's kind of an interesting blend I've seen as of late.
The joy is basically a festival atmosphere in either it is at home or at the temple. Always coupled with music. Whatever kind of music that they are aware of, whether it is an old version of the Carnatic music or the modern version of the pop music or even movie songs and things like that. And they sing and they dance and they play instruments like a violin or a piano or whatever. Flute is a very famous portable instrument, so anybody can carry those with them. So those are always there will be music and dancing and festivities. And coupled with, at home, they have feast. The feast to take care of they're called 6 arasubai, six types of food, taste, like sweet, sour, and those type of 6 different taste type of food they cook, eat and celebrate. That's basically the way the joy is.
See how joy and food are connected.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to thank our panelists for sharing with us. I also would like to thank the church here for welcoming us to be able to have a dialogue like this. We continue to appreciate your connection with CCIU and the advice you have as well as we go forward. But, thank you, Sean, for gracious hosting.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I just want to say quickly, because I said my wife and I are here because we don't see this. We lived in 5 different countries. So I lived in Iran where the Baha'i and the Zoroastrian were. Zoroastrian historically is the first monotheistic religion, and I lived in Japan, so I saw Buddhism. And I saw the beauty of Judaism, which is discussion. And the beauty of this Islam is hospitality. So if any of you want to know anything about those religions, the Baha'i, the Zoroastrian, Buddhism, or the Shiites in Iran, or the Sunnis in Saudi Arabia, which we also live, we'll be glad to answer any of those
Thank you.
questions.
I saw your note.
I congratulate you so much for having this here. I'm awed. And you gentlemen, you guys have taught me so much today. Thank you, all three of you. Very, very, very much. And shalom.
Great ending there.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, well, we'll be back in 2 weeks, and the theme space will be Islam, Unitarianism, and Jainism.